I never thought 12 years of marriage could be undone by a single envelope. Yet there I was, standing with shaking hands and a heart that felt like it had been torn from my chest. My name is Daniel. And for more than a decade I believed I had a life built on trust and love with my wife Claire. Together we raised our daughter Lily, who had just turned 11. She was my reason to endure the long hours at work, my anchor when life felt like too much, the joy that made me believe everything was worth it. But storms don't arrive with thunder and lightning. They slip quietly into the cracks of what you thought was a solid home. By the time you notice, the damage is already done. The signs came slowly. Late-night phone calls Claire brushed off as work. Errands that seemed to pile up, always urgent, always away from home. A distance that grew wider each day until I felt like a stranger under my own roof. At first, I told myself it was nothing, that I was imagining shadows where there were none. Claire had always kept parts of herself private, and I convinced myself that prying would only make things worse. We had 12 years of marriage behind us. Surely that had to mean something. But the truth never stays buried. One evening, I came home earlier than she expected. When I walked into the kitchen, she nearly dropped her phone, her hand darting to lock it before I could see. The guilt in her eyes said more than her mouth ever could. When I asked who she had been speaking to, she laughed it off, nervously calling me paranoid. I wanted to believe her. For Lily's sake, for the life I thought we'd built, I forced myself to swallow my doubt. But once suspicion plants itself inside you, it spreads like fire, refusing to be ignored. I began noticing small things. Receipts that didn't line up. Stories that contradicted themselves. Blocks of time she couldn't account for. The night I confronted her, I hoped she would finally tell me the truth. Instead, she lashed out, accusing me of being controlling and paranoid. Her defensiveness was louder than any confession. The shouting escalated until our daughter, trembling with tears in her eyes, came between us. Lily defended her mother, insisting I was tearing the family apart. Hearing those words from my little girl nearly broke me. To her, I was the villain, the one destroying her safe world. But I couldn't live in lies anymore. I made the decision that night. I ordered a DNA test. Waiting for those results was pure torment. 2 weeks of sleepless nights staring at the ceiling, caught between hope and dread. Part of me prayed I was wrong, that all of this was just exhaustion and suspicion twisting my mind. But the look in Claire's eyes, the distance in her touch, told me otherwise. The house turned into a battlefield. Claire refused to speak, walking around with icy silence. To Lily, she painted herself as the victim. She told our daughter that I was trying to break us apart. And Lily believed her. She wouldn't talk to me. She slammed doors, shut me out, and clung to her mother's side. One night I overheard their conversation. Lily whispered to Claire, her voice shaking, "Mom, I'll always defend you. Dad just doesn't understand us." That single sentence gutted me. Not only was I losing my wife, but my daughter was slipping from my hands too. The fear of losing her completely nearly crushed me. But I had to know the truth. When the envelope finally arrived, my hands trembled as if the weight of 12 years had been folded into those papers. Claire saw it and smirked, her confidence cruel. Lily stood beside her, glaring at me with disappointment, as if I was the one who had betrayed the family. I tore it open, scanning the words, and my breath stopped. The results were undeniable. Lily was not my biological daughter. The room spun around me. My knees almost buckled under the truth. Every memory, every scraped knee I had bandaged, every bedtime story, every birthday candle I had lit, it all collapsed. For 11 years, I had been raising another man's child while my wife looked me in the eyes and lied. Claire's smirk faltered as she read my expression. Lily screamed at me, insisting I was lying, that her mother would never do that. But the paper in my hand didn't lie. The truth stood between us, cold and immovable. Claire's face turned pale, but she tried to regain control. "Daniel, this doesn't change anything," she said, her voice shaking but firm. "You're still her father. Biology doesn't erase the years." Her words didn't comfort me. They burned like acid. She hadn't just betrayed me, she had stolen my choice. She robbed me of the truth, forcing me into a life built on deception. Yes, I loved Lily with all my heart, but love couldn't erase betrayal. Lily clung to her mother, crying, "Why would you even take that test? You're trying to ruin everything." She wasn't ready to see the truth. Claire had poisoned her against me so thoroughly that reality itself felt like the enemy. Watching my daughter recoil from me, choosing her mother, was the cruelest punishment I could imagine. I was the outsider in my own home. The man who had provided, sacrificed, and loved, now cast as the villain for daring to uncover the truth. The days that followed were a blur. Shouting matches, tears, silence heavy as stone. Claire never apologized. Instead, she twisted the story, accusing me of destroying the family with my obsession for answers. She wanted me to stay, to pretend none of it mattered. But once you know the truth, you can't unknow it. You can't unsee betrayal once the light has burned through the lies. One morning, while the house still slept, I packed my bags. I walked into Lily's room, kissed her forehead, and whispered an apology she wouldn't understand yet. On the kitchen table, I left the envelope. Its contents louder than any fight, more final than any goodbye. Claire had stolen my trust, my peace, and the family I thought was mine. But she couldn't take away my resolve. Walking out that door was the most painful thing I've ever done, but it was also the first step toward freedom. Betrayal had shattered the life I believed in. But it also gave me one thing Claire could never control: the chance to begin again. And as the door closed behind me, I swore I would never let lies chain me to a life that wasn't truly mine. Do you want me to expand this into a multi-chapter version, like before, during, after the DNA reveal, with more emotional detail and Claire's manipulations shown in layers, or keep it as one long continuous flow like this?